Hubert, what are your
thanks.
thoughts?
Go for it.
What are your thoughts on Kentucky just overall? I mean, they can score it, they share it. It looks like Bradshaw's added another dimension
Yeah.
to what they do. Like, just what's your assessment of Kentucky so far?
Yeah, they do. You know, they, the way that they score in terms of their pace, I think is elite. You know, they're really good in transition. It's not just off of a missed shot or off of a turnover. Even after a made basket, they get the ball out quick. They do an excellent job of pitching the ball ahead, and they're very efficient at scoring in the first 6 or 7 seconds of a possession. And so, from that standpoint, you know, our transition defense in any scenario is going to have to be really good defensively. And when you talked about their ability not just to pass the basketball, but also take care of it. They're, you know, it's a team that really does a nice job not turning the ball over. And then you add the dimension of Bradshaw and his length, his shot blocking ability, having a guy that can consistently score around the rim gives them another, asset on the offensive end. And so, as it's been for the first 9 games, it'll be a great challenge for us, and we're excited about it.
Kind of going off of that, you mentioned obviously the transition defense, but when there is a team that is that fast and has that many scores, what's unique about the, I guess, on-court preparation, for a team that's averaging, obviously you guys have played a lot of teams.
We're
with high
pretty fast
physicality.
too.
For sure. But there's teams that you guys have played that are like high physicality, and they're a team that's just up and down and up and down.
Yeah, Tennessee's pretty good in transition. Arkansas is pretty good in transition. So, and we're pretty good also. So we get to practice against each other every day. And so, but you're right, Kentucky's speed, they've got a number of different, playmakers that have the ability to advance the ball up the floor. And their bigs, specifically Mitchell's an excellent passer and outletter, and he does a terrific job of just pitching the ball ahead and allowing them to get out in transition. So that's something that they do really well. It's something that I think we do really well, and we're just going to have to do it in that particular area better than them on Saturday.
I know that the guys had exams, but you set up at MSG last week that this was an opportunity for you to spend some time working on yourself.
Yeah.
What are some of those things you guys worked on?
Rebounding.
And do you think you made, more specifically with the rebounding, can you get into that a little bit more? And do you think you've made some progress with that?
Yeah, I can get into it a little bit more. I think, first of all, just having more of a presence, getting second chance opportunities, consistently getting our 3, 4, and 5 to the offensive glass every time, giving us multiple opportunities to be able to score. Defensively, I've been straightforward and direct in terms of wanting to be the best, have the best defensive rebounding percentage in the country, which means you have to box out and you have to limit teams to one shot every possession. And so we've got to do a better job of creating contact first, boxing out, and being more active in getting those rebounds so that we can get out in transition on the offensive end. And so, for us to be the best that we can be, I've told the team from day one, we've got to be a really good rebounding team. We have to be a good defensive team, and we've got to take care of the basketball. And so those are things that we have talked about since the UConn game, re-emphasizing.
Hubert, you guys in Kentucky go after a lot of the same guys in recruiting. With that in mind, is it almost like having sort of an advanced scouting report on teams like that when you've seen a lot of these guys through high school and AAU ball, like Dillingham from Asheville? Is it kind of like that?
Well, I mean, I think, in terms of, individual scouting report, you know a little bit more about somebody because you've spent time recruiting them. But in terms of any extra advantage in terms of playing against them, I don't see that at all. I mean, obviously, we've seen and we've been at the same tournaments, AAU tournaments and high school games as a number of guys on both teams. And I think that's one of the things that makes it a lot of fun is that you get to compete against people that are known.
Is there anyone in practice who's kind of stood out in the last week, as you're making adjustments since that UConn loss?
I wouldn't specifically point out one person, I would say everyone has, you know, this, since coming back from UConn, has done three things. One, we've gotten a little bit of rest in terms of, you know, maybe a sore ankle, a sore wrist, and so from a health standpoint, we've gotten healthier. I feel like our guys have done a fantastic job of finishing out the semester academically the right way, and I really feel like each one of the guys has really worked hard on getting better this last week and a half to put ourselves in a position to play our best against a really good Kentucky team.
Hubert, as you with Cormac, as you've looked at it yourself as a guy who can shoot it, I know he's shooting a great percentage from the free throw line, but outside he's hit a little bit of a funk here.
Yeah.
What do you think he's rushing his shot, or do you think he's like? What would your assessment be? Like sometimes, I don't know. To me, it looks like he's either rushing it or sort of wishing it. You know, like what would you say?
Well, I just, filtered through my own experience in my career, and there were times that my shot just didn't go in. I mean, my checkpoints for me personally was there anything, from a fundamental standpoint, was my elbow not in? Was I not following through? Was I not using my legs? Was a rotation on my shot not the way that I have practiced it or how I wanted it? And then I would also, so if I could check that box, I would look at, what is my shot selection? It doesn't matter if I'm shooting poor shots, I'm going to shoot a poor percentage. So I would look at that. And then number three is, was I preparing? Was I spending the extra time before and after practice to be able to put myself in a position to shoot at a high percentage? And so in relation to Cormac, there hasn't been anything, from a structural fundamental standpoint that I would say is why he hadn't shot it as well as he would have liked it. I don't think it's in terms of shot selection, and I think it's impossible to be in the gym more than Cormac.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, for me, the percentages always evened out. There were times where I shot the ball and I didn't make it, and there were times where I can close my eyes and I can throw it behind my back and it would swish and go in. And those things happen. And but again, and I've said this before with everybody, but specifically with Cormac, what he brings to the team, that's one thing that he brings to the team, one of many things. He is not a shooter. He is a basketball player. He is a leader. And what he brings to the team is so much. That's just one thing that he brings to the team.
I guess just following.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, and I hear you. We've talked about the many different things that he provides.
Yeah.
What do you talk to him about? Like, I mean, he's obviously a very experienced guy, played hundreds of college games. Like, when you're talking to him just out there or just around here, what do you guys talk about?
In terms of basketball?
Yeah, or like teaching points that you might try to give him, or just what's the general conversation like with him?
Yeah, with any player, in terms of like his shot, I would never, as I said before, I don't see anything fundamentally or structurally wrong with the shot. Shot selection is great.
Yeah, they're good looks.
Yeah. And so I just, again, just reinforce all the other things that he does for this team, and for him to continue to do that and to encourage him. I know when my shot wasn't going in, I zeroed in more on, rebounding, defense, playmaking ability, hustle plays, doing something that could help my team and give them an advantage. And at the end of the day, the shots will end up going in. And so those are the conversations not only that I have with Cormac, but I have with each player.
Yeah, as you have had some time to look at the UConn tape just over the past few days, what are some of the lessons that you guys learned from that?
The rebounding.
What's, I guess, like specifically?
Boxing out, getting those 50-50 rebounds, loose balls around the free throw line area, being tough enough to make contact first, consistently going to the offensive glass, getting second chance opportunities, putting us in a position to get multiple ways to score, those are the things, you know, from the UConn game. But, you know, after the UConn game, you know, we look at the tape and then how can we improve? How can we get better this week? And then it's been focused on preparing for Kentucky. So
The success that UConn had in the half court against your switching, was that just because they're so talented, or did you see adjustments that need to be made coming out of that game?
well, you know, they are really good in terms of their execution in the half court. There's just a ton of movements, a number of different types of actions, from flare screens to down screens to DHOs to ball screens. It takes a lot of communication to be able to defend them. I felt like, for the most part, in that game, we did a really good job for 20, 25 seconds, and then the last 5-7 seconds, that's where they were able to be really efficient scoring. So, you know, in terms of, you know, stuff that we talked about is, you know, finishing the possession for a full 30 seconds if needed, to be able to stay locked in and be able to execute so we can get a stop.
Hubert, what's the significance, you think, of getting two blue blood programs in UNC, Kentucky together at this point in the season on a national type stage?
Well, it's fun. You know, it's great being able to compete against the better teams in the country, and you know, anytime that you get a chance to play against Kentucky and Coach Calipari, it's something to enjoy and something to take advantage of and have fun competing. And so to be able to do it on Saturday in Atlanta, it'll be packed and the atmosphere will be live, and that's exactly what you want as a player and as a competitor. And we're really excited about the challenge on Saturday afternoon.
I know you guys are locked into playing Kentucky every 3 or 4 years as part of the CBS Sports Classic, but like bringing back the home and home that you guys used to have with them a few years ago, is that something that you would be open to in the future?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would. But I would, yes.
Where is Jalen Withers in the process of kind of meshing on the floor? And I asked that in the last few games, he struggled a little bit. So kind of where is he in the full process with that?
No, he's getting better every day at practice. Like, you know, what he brings to the table is something that nobody else on the team brings. He has size, athleticism, versatility. From a defensive standpoint, he can guard 1 through 5. He has that type of length and athleticism. You talk about getting better rebounding. He's somebody that can definitely help us in terms of, you know, rebounding the basketball. His ability to run the floor, attack the basket, finish in transition, it's something that he brings that nobody else on the team can bring. And so, you know, he's a big piece of this team's success. And he's really working hard and getting better every day at practice. And as I said before, he is a huge piece for us to become the team that we want to become.
As Adam asked about you having a conversation with Cormac, have you had one with Jalen just in recent?
Yeah, I mean, I talk to the guys all the time. I mean, when you guys ask me about, you know, have I had a conversation, and I tell them one of the things that's really important to me is to touch the guys every day. And I mean, I'm talking to them, I'm calling them, I'm texting them all the time. So I know I require them to stop by the office 1 time a week, but that's just a requirement. I have conversations with each of the players, literally, at least 90% of the team, like deep conversations with them every day, even on an off day. And so I'm just always talking to them, not just about basketball, what's going on in their life, because I think that's a huge part in the coaching and knowing what's going on in our players' lives. I think that plays a huge impact in how they perform, how they prepare, and how they play. And so, you know, I have conversations with them all the time.
As you're preparing for this next game, have you thought back at all to the last Kentucky matchup?
No. No.
Vegas.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Hubert, along the lines of what Michael was sort of asking you about the schedule, I wanted to ask you about the schedule. Let's see if I got it right. You're in a stretch here of Villanova, Arkansas,
pray again. So sorry about that, guys.
That's okay.
You went to
Villanova,
schedule and it told me to pray because of the schedule you're about to.
That's pretty in sync right there.
I was gonna say earlier, you can just send us those conversations you have with the players if you want to. We'll take it from there.
I'm talking to them all the time.
Just let us know, that's all. You're in a stretch here of what, Villanova, Arkansas, Tennessee, FSU, UConn, Kentucky, Oklahoma. And I know the schedule, I know with playing certain tournaments and stuff, the schedule sort of sets itself some years, but, you know, it's a pretty cool stretch of opponents here for the people who get to watch you play. Do you like it in terms of getting a team ready for the ACC, or is it too much?
I like it. I do. I mean, this is great that, you know, for in the teams that you mentioned, I don't leave out Radford, Lehigh, UC Riverside. They almost beat UCLA at UCLA. You know, I like it. I do. I think it's a great schedule. I think it's important for us to be tested and for us to find out who we are. And in the first 9 games, we're 7-2. So we've got 2 more games before Christmas break, and then another stretch comes. And so I just don't remember. I've had a number of people ask me that question in different ways, and I don't. You asked me, do I remember? I do not remember a time where it was not a challenging schedule for North Carolina. And specifically me as head coach over the last couple of years, I don't remember a time where, I mean, last year we played Iowa State, Alabama, on the road against Indiana, on the road, first ACC game against Virginia Tech, played at home against Georgia Tech, then went on a neutral site game against a ranked opponent in Ohio State, and then played Michigan in Charlotte. What's the difference of last year's between this year's? And so every year Carolina's always played a challenging schedule, and we always will.
Yeah.
We have time for 2 last questions.
I just didn't know if it was like, you know, you might tell Hoot, say, let's dial it down a little bit here.
Hoots is not in charge of the schedule.
I thought he was for some.
No.
Oh, it's Clint, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Just
that's
going,
Clint.
Clint press conference next.
Yeah, exactly.
Clint's okay.
Pray.
He was a kicker. You don't need to.
I guess just going back to the rebounding, you brought it up a lot. Obviously, it's something that you guys have emphasized with the team a lot. What have you been doing specifically in practice in terms of drills or in scrimmages to work on that?
Well, I think there's 3 parts. I mean, I think 1, there's drills that you can do. I think number 2 is you have to hold them accountable. If they don't do it, then
Are they running?
yeah. Either you're gonna rebound or you're gonna be in even better shape. We're gonna run.
That's great, yeah.
And then the 3rd piece is it'll affect playing time. It's very important to me. It's at the top of the list. Rebound, defend, and taking care of the basketball. We gotta rebound. And we're gonna find a group of guys that consistently want to rebound the basketball on both ends of the floor and be the best rebounding team that we can possibly become.
Got time for 1 more.
Hubert, obviously with Kentucky, there's probably several players we can, you know, single out, but specifically with Rob Dillingham, obviously being a freshman, he's leading their team in assists. He's also shown the ability to score and things like that. When you look at him and, you know, in your preparation for him, what are some of the things that kind of, you know, sticks out about his game? Is there anybody that he kind of reminds you of, anything like that?
Well, I mean, he's just tremendous speed, athleticism. He's a player that not only is fast without the ball, but probably just as fast or even faster with the ball. His ability just to be able to make plays offensively, create not only for himself, but for his teammates is at an elite level. He's extremely confident. I've been really impressed with him defensively. He's done a nice job of getting steals and deflections, and he's done a nice job on the defensive end as well. He's off to a really good start, but it's not surprising to me. He's a fantastic kid and a wonderful player.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.